he saw 12 gates. He said, I counted them. I could see them all, 12 gates all the way around. And he said, they were closed to me. And he looks at the nearest to try to find a way in, and he sees angels outside the gates. And he said, then I realize I'm looking at the kingdom of heaven. I interviewed this Rwandan imam and Australian and, guy in Singapore and, all these people all over the world that I could interview by Zoom, and their story can be heard, but that couldn't have happened even 5 years ago. And so that's what I think he's doing. So Santos became a good friend of mine, dear man. He grew up in India and Hindu background. His father was a Sanskrit scholar, so he knew the Hindu scriptures really well. He has his gallbladder erupted into his pancreas and caused his blood pressure to shoot up over 200, or his heartbeat was like 200 beats per minute, and they couldn't get it down. They couldn't operate, and he coded. And he hears code blue, and then he's above his body, and this brilliant God of light, he knew was a divine light, he said. And he said to me in the interview, he said, I always thought when you die, it's either nothing or maybe I would come back as another life form. He said, but that didn't happen. Instead, this divine light comes to him, and he said, I fell in love with this light because I knew it was good and there to protect me and cared about me. And he follows and he travels through, again, these tunnels that he said they went through. And he comes to this place and he's parked up on a platform overlooking what he described it to me as a giant compound. Now, I've been to India many times. We helped build a hospital in India. And India, if you've ever been, have you ever been? They're compounds. They're high-walled, gated communities everywhere, at least where I've been. And he described it that way, but he said, on the other side, your eyesight is like telescopic. So I could see like thousands of miles each side, and it was square-shaped and thousands of miles. And inside just these lush, gorgeous, just spectacular beauty and grounds of nature, but also these buildings of otherworldly building material. And he's a manufacturing engineer, so that's what he would notice. Otherworldly building material, these spectacular, beautiful buildings. And he saw people, and he said, I long to go in there. He said, I realized this is the place we all would love to be. That's what he said. And he saw 12 gates. He said, I counted them. I could see them all, 12 gates all the way around. And he said, they were closed to me. And he looks at the nearest to try to find a way in, and he sees angels outside the gates. And he said, then I realize I'm looking at the kingdom of heaven. All right, now what he described is to the T what John describes in Revelation chapter 21, when he says he was taken in his spirit up to a very high mountain that others have described as these mountains taller than the Himalayas overlooking the city. And interestingly, John says he describes the city, and somehow he reads the names on the foundation stones. How? Unless he's saying he too had telescopic vision. And this is in the Bible, right? John describes a walled, gated city, square-shaped, and 12 gates and angels outside the gates, exactly as Santos described. Santos had never read the Bible. All he knew was Hinduism. And then, interestingly, he's like, where am I? And he's looking around, and he realizes he's up on a high platform, very high, and there's no railing. And he looks down to his left, and he says it was hell. He said he was looking into what I think was a vision of hell. I don't think hell is right outside the city of God. And again, I think that's where time and distance and space, they work differently. But God showed him that. He said it was an abyss. He said it was a dark, hopeless abyss that he said had a lake of fire at the bottom, which even as a pastor, I thought that was metaphor. Because I was like, you can't have utter darkness and a lake of fire. The fire lights up the darkness. Mm-hmm. I don't get it.
Not there, huh?
I don't get it, but they said it. And this is a Hindu guy.
Yeah.
This is not someone trying to prove the Bible. So there's a lot of this that changed me to kind of go, well, maybe it's not all metaphor like I thought, or as much metaphor as I thought. So then Santos is like, he doesn't want to go there. He wants to go in the city, and he's looking for another way in, and he turns and looks, and there he said he sees a throne, and who he said he knew this was the Almighty. So this is God, and he knew the brilliant light was God, but in this case, he was in the form of a man, but giant. Which again, I would have said like, what? But I heard so many say this. So I don't know what to do with it.
This is all of these. Wow. So all the descriptions are very similar.
They overlap. All the ones I'm telling you have others who say the same things. Otherwise, I kind of just put them on a shelf. Yeah. Until I hear multiple ones reporting the same things, I kind of put it on a shelf and like, yeah, maybe.
Do you have this all mapped out somewhere? I'm just curious.
I wrote 2 books.
I mean, but 1,500-ish.
Oh yeah, I have
interviews.
I have so many documents, just Word documents of interviews and Zoom interviews recorded and audio interviews recorded.
How were you able to map them all into
all the different commonalities?
Yeah,
it took 35 years. Okay. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's like I didn't just set out to do this. I'm just obsessively curious, and I don't know why. I do know why. I now know why. I think this is God's mission for me. And, there were a lot of things along the way that I'd ask, like, why did I do that? Why did I become an engineer if you wanted me to start a church for skeptics, but all of it had a reason now. I see that. My engineer brain trained me, like, when things don't make sense, just hold on to them, keep at it until the puzzle pieces start to fit. And that's what he's used in this research too. So real quick with Santos, what was amazing is in the presence of the Almighty, he sees this. He told me later he believes this was the glorified Jesus on his throne, because what he described is what John described in Revelation chapter 1. It's what Daniel described in Daniel chapter 7. This man of light, feet glowing bronze, and like face like the sun, eyes like lightning. He doesn't always appear like that. Mm-hmm. He doesn't. But he did to Santos. He did to Bibi in Tehran. So it appears differently at times to different people. But Santos thinks he's gonna cast him into hell because he has a life review and he sees all his sins and he knows, that's what I deserve. And when God speaks to him, he said, I felt such tenderness and mercy and compassion and love. He said, Santos, I'm sending you back to earth. And when you go back, you must love your family, and especially your daughter. She needs your help right now. Which is fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, this is supposedly the Christian God. Here's a Hindu man, but he knows intimately what his daughter's going through and how his daughter needs her father. Isn't that amazing? And he comes back and well, first of all, when he feels this compassion and tenderness and forgiveness from the Lord, he gets bold and he sees right next to the throne, he said, he called it this very narrow gate or door that was open to him. It was the only one that was open into what he called the kingdom of heaven. And he said, Lord, when I come back, how do I go through that door? I want to go through that door into your kingdom. How do I do it? Which is interesting because God does not often give instruction or direction. And again, I think it's because he wants to know, will we seek him? And he says, if you seek me with all your heart, you'll find me. But he did say this to Santos because Santos was thinking, what church do I go to? What mosque? What temple? I'll go anywhere. And he was thinking religion, like once a week religion. That's what he was thinking in his mind. And the Lord said, no, I want relationship. I want to know how honest, how sincere will you be with me? Not one day a week, 365 days a year. How sincere and honest will you be with me? And then he said to him, the wages of sin is death, which is a Bible verse. The next part of it is, but the free gift of God is forgiveness through Jesus. But he didn't tell him that part, which is interesting. He waited for him to come back and seek. And then he said to him, surrender yourself to me daily and walk with me. And Santosh told me, I was actually confused when I came back because I was like, I know the gods of the Hindu scriptures, and this God of light and love, this mighty, almighty giant, he said he was compassionate and tender, and he knew all my wrongs. I knew what I deserved, and yet he forgave me. He was compassionate. Who was this?
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.